James Paxton shoves in his latest rehab start, and the Red Sox win the series against the Guardians.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Jake Ignaszewski, and today I am joined by WooSox sideline reporter and broadcaster, and newly one of the hosts of pre and post game on WEEI for the Red Sox, Cooper Boardman, to talk a little bit about how James Paxton looked in his recent rehab outing on Sunday, and also discuss if Cooper expected what we've seen from Jarren Duran thus far, as well as talking about a little bit of the Red Sox winning the series against the Guardians. Let's get into my conversation with Cooper Boardman. I am here with WooSox broadcaster and sideline reporter, and newly one of the WEEI pre and post game hosts for the Red Sox, Cooper Boardman. So how are we doing today, Coop?
Jake, I am awesome. All good here. A little rainy, cold day in Worcester, but I'm warm in the apartment. It's been a great week for the WooSox, great week for the Red Sox, and I'm happy to be here, happy to be on the pod.
And even with the rain, it was a little bit muggy, a little bit of a dim day, but it was a bright day in terms of what we saw from James Paxton today on the mound.
Yeah, no doubt. And so, as we record this, just kind of a few hours after, and we did a radio broadcast today, and we came on, and Jim Kane and I were talking. I was like, at some point, James Paxton's going to have the day where he has the start where you say, oh, there's James Paxton. And not that he's been bad over the last, the first four appearances, but it was not consistent command of the breaking stuff. And that was the biggest deal. And today was that day. The final line speaks for itself. 5 1/3, 8 Ks, didn't give up a run. But beyond just that, it's the eye test too. And he just looked right. He looked like the guy that the Red Sox and we all hoped that he could be. It was fun. It was fun. And I think it's a day that you can dream a little bit.
And, I also saw Tyler Murray put out that in his last start prior to this one today, he struck out. His 5 strikeouts were all due to his fastball. And then in today's start, where he had 8 strikeouts, he used all 3 of his pitches to be able to get those.
Yeah, he had the 4-seamer legit, and the cut fastball, and the knuckle curve looked the best that it's looked to this point. And, when I talked to him a couple of weeks ago after the first start at Polar Park, so that would be now 3 appearances ago, he said, I feel like the fastball is there. And I, he was 95, 96, 97. Remember the velo conversation about him has been like kind of bouncing around. But man, like he's 96, 97. And now it's command of the breaking stuff. And that is the biggest thing. That is what he talked about, throwing that knuckle curve, which is obviously such a weapon for him. Even the cut fastball looked really good against left-handers today. And so, when you sit there and you're trying to, figure out how he's going to pave his way back, I think you saw, and we'll see what happens, but you saw the biggest step by a wide margin today. He retired 11 of the first 12 guys he saw.
Wow. And, we saw his start on Tuesday. He allowed like 3 or so runs early on. One of those was a home run. And a lot of the comments that I heard from other people who were at that start was he was leaving his breaking stuff high. He was leaving it up in the zone, and he got beat on those. And so it's nice to see him being able to get that control back, looking a lot more confident on the mound. And it's nice seeing that more and more pitchers are becoming to come back healthy, especially now that, Garrett Whitlock's now on the IL. Bryan Bello needs to fill in, but now they're starting to get some more excitement and more healthiness in terms of the rotation.
2 things that jump out to me is and something that Jim said on the broadcast earlier today is like he didn't have a spring training. Like think about it. You go and think about the ramp up process, and nobody's paying attention outside of the people that are in and around the team over that month, but like to go from late January to April is a time. That incline takes a very long time. And he didn't really have that. And so what we're watching is spring training unfolding. He gives up 3 runs, leaves a breaking ball up in the zone on February 15th. Nobody cares. But, but now you're just seeing it in live game. And the best part about that is now you're seeing every single step that he's taking. You're seeing what that looks like. And it's been fun to watch. And today is the fruit of all of that. That's one. And two is, I said this earlier, like, this is a day to dream. And it's not just James Paxton, it's Chris Sale and what he did. And I didn't watch every pitch of the start today. It was during our game. But just, seeing what he put forth and hearing what he said after the game about his adjustments, this is a team that, the starting pitching has, is not where you want it to be from an ERA perspective, from a results perspective, but it's also a starting pitching staff that all of a sudden feels a lot sturdier, and Paxton included, and perhaps leading the way on the way back to that than it did a couple of weeks ago, I think.
I agree. And, you brought up Sale, hit 97 today, was the fastest he's pitched since 2021. And, Paxton as well, getting up there in the 97 range or so. And I think with both of those guys, both having very similar injuries over the last 2 seasons or so, both having, lengthy times of return. And, I was actually at that Paxton start in Minnesota in spring training and saw him, make one inning appearance, and talked with Ian Brown sort of about all the different hamstring issues that we saw down in Fort Myers, and he brought up the heat, because that's one thing that I watched very closely when Paxton was preparing for that start. How is he warming up? Did he work out did he stretch his hamstring at all prior to that start? Because that's why essentially had to get walked off and got cut short. And that's one thing that I said over and over again prior to him even making his rehab appearances is I just want to see James Paxton finish one start, because his time prior to what he's done with Worcester so far in his rehab appearances, he got taken out of every single rehab appearance he had over the last year or so.
Yeah, it is true. Is when you think about that timeline, it's a really good point. And it's like, you not only want to see him because you want to, you want him to pitch for the Red Sox. You want to see him because he's really good. And I think, lost in this whole conversation about him, like, when's he going to be back? Is he going to be back? How long is it going to take? How many more like, all that's fine. But like, when he's been out there and healthy in his career, period, and the age hasn't really mattered, he's been really good. Right. And so, like, that's a weapon for this team, obviously, and it'll be interesting to see when this happens, and obviously how he's used once it happens when he gets to the major league level. But like, just as we were getting ready, this is just like the fan in me who loves the sport, like watching him as we were getting ready to see him for the first time and watching him the way he pitched in a Mariners uniform. And the way that, obviously the no-hitter in Toronto that will go down forever as the first Canadian pitcher to throw a no-hitter. What he did for the Yankees, over those couple of years, when they were battling with the Astros in 18 and 19 and so on and so on. I mean, that is the guy that you dream the Red Sox would get. And I get why people have let that go a little bit because of the injury. But he's the same dude. I mean, and today is like, it's Big Maple, and it's a big step for Big Maple.
And, he made his last 2 starts against the Yankees AAA team, which for me, like working at the games, I was sort of imagining myself watching him pitch for the Yankees just a few years ago. And I'm like, I would never think to watch him, not only in a Red Sox uniform, but a Worcester Red Sox uniform playing, against the Yankees AAA team to Rehab, going back to the Sox. But, you were also at the game where they tried to, give him his first glimpse as a rehab or a relief pitcher. And boy, did that not work out. So I'm guessing in your mind, you definitely see him, beginning with the Sox as a starter and then probably sticking with that.
I have no idea, honestly. Okay. Like, I really don't know. And this is less about James Paxton, and it's more about where the Red Sox are at. It's like, you go out and you sign all these starters. And I mean, you could argue, it depends where you want to stop this conversation, but like, you could argue there are like 8 guys you could start: Josh Winkowski and Cutter Crawford, and like all of this. And like, I think Cutter Crawford's a major league starter, and I know Tanner Houck's a major league starter. I know Brian Bello's a major league starter, and that's before I even talk about guys who have done it their entire careers, like Sale and Kluber and Pivetta and so on and so on. And so I don't know if they know what they're going to do. You go out and sign all these guys, and maybe you don't know like if they're all going to be healthy. And like they certainly had to have insurance for Paxton because he didn't play last year. And Sale, and these are all narratives that like I don't need to tell you. Everybody knows this. But man, like all of a sudden, you're about to be in a situation where they're all healthy.
Yeah.
And they're all taking steps, right? Like walk through it, just very quickly. Like Sale, what he did today, boom, like that's the guy that you pray and hope and again hope that he's going to be.
Right.
You add in what Whitlock has the capability of doing, what he's done in stints as he tries to figure out kind of what being in the starting rotation looks like, and then it's about Kluber and Paxton and Pivetta and all of these guys before you even start the conversation about Cutter Crawford and Bryan Bello, who are both guys that have shown the ability to be starters at the major league level. That is I've been talking for a minute and a half about this, and we really haven't even gotten that far into it. That's the situation right here. And so to go back to your original question about Paxton, I don't know. I know he's a weapon.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know where that fits in right now, but it's a good problem to have. That's the reality of it.
I hope that you are enjoying my conversation with Cooper Boardman, but I just want to take a second to talk to you about Built Bars. So if you're looking for a delicious snack and don't want all the sugar and calories, then you need to try the best tasting protein bar ever, Built. You seriously got to try this. Lauren and I have talked about this for months. And honestly, it's something that I eat after a workout in the middle of the day or anytime I want just a quick snack that will fill me up for a few hours. That's not only good for me, but also actually tastes good. No joke. It's made with real 100% dark chocolate. That's right. Real chocolate. And it tastes like a literal candy bar. And it has great flavors like peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream, and even churro. The craziest part about it is that there's 17 grams of protein, only 130 calories, and 4 grams of sugar. That's something that, at least for me, I'm currently trying to get back into working out and stuff. That's something that I love to know, especially if I'm going to be eating something. It's not only going to be good for me, but it's also going to fill me up and be able to help me be able to live a healthier life. So we've talked about for years being able to go on built.com to get a box of Built Bars. You can actually go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club and get exclusive specialty flavors still on built.com, but can also get them, like I said, at Walmart and Sam's Club. So make sure to go over to built.com to get some Built Bars. And I also want to talk to you about BetterHelp. So I don't know about you, but you know me, I'm really into the mental health side of not only sports, but also life as well. And, I'm always trying to learn more about myself. And I think one of the best ways to do this is through therapy. I don't know if you've ever experienced therapy, but each time I've had a new therapist or gone through those experiences, it's always really helped me learn about who I am and who I want to be throughout this life, and also how to deal with different situations. It's really difficult, especially if you're dealing with a tough decision or tough situation, to go to your friends and family all the time. Being able to have an outside resource who has the tools to be able to help you be able to learn more about why you're acting or reacting in different ways to different situations, and to be able to help you think out the difficult parts of life. And I also think that, especially with therapy, it's so tough and so stressful to find the right therapist. And something that BetterHelp really gives you the ability to do is be able to find something that fits your schedule, that's flexible, but also to find the right match. And they do a great way of being able to set you up with the right therapist by just having you fill out a brief questionnaire and then matching you with a licensed therapist, and the ability to make the transition as seamless as possible. And if you're starting to think about wanting to get into therapy, BetterHelp is the best way to do it because it's entirely online. You don't have to go in and spend time driving to a place. You can do it all online, flexible within your schedule as well. So find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonmlb today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonmlb. Now let's get back into my conversation with Cooper. It definitely is a good problem to have, but I just think, at least with when you look at a Paxton, a Kluber, a Sale, a Whitlock, even a Bello, it's just the consistency. I mean, when you look at the last 3 to 4 starts for all 5 of those guys that I just mentioned, it's like on one end of the spectrum, they shoved, and then the other end of the spectrum, they got blown out, when you look at all these different guys. And so I think that's the main thing that, like, looking at just down the stretch of 162, you can't have Sale allow 5 earned runs one start and then shove the next start and have that be like a back and forth all throughout the season, especially if that's like 4 or 5 year starters. I mean, we all know starting rotation and pitching in general, that's how you win championships.
Yeah, and the Red Sox ERA wise, haven't gotten that, to this point. And that's straight up just true when you look at it. And that's what this team is, right? And we've talked about this a lot, in our post games, where it's like this team had the biggest kind of disparity between what they could be and on the other end of the spectrum, what they could be, truly. Yeah. And right now, sitting a game above 500, that's exactly where they're at, right smack dab in the middle. And we felt both sides of that. And so, the good news is it feels completely different than last year, I think, top to bottom. And I think that's all you can ask for.
So TC actually came out with, he said, it's the 7th time in 20 seasons the Red Sox win 15 games or more before May 1st. They made the postseason each of the other 6 times. If the Yankees lose, the Red Sox will begin the month tied with New York, 15-14. And I quote tweeted that, I'm like, World Series aspirations are back on, baby.
No, I think you felt it all. Like you have felt it all in these first few weeks. But from what's been most exciting, I think, beyond just the offense and some of the guys, Yoshida really starting to come along, and obviously Verdugo with what he's done. Just like the guys that have come up and been successful, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but like to have Jarren Duran do what he's done.
Yeah, let's talk about Duran.
Yeah, and just to keep it, like Tristan Casas after a slow start, like you can see the at-bats are getting better. And Manuel Valdez getting his feet wet is real cool. Like,
but with him, it's like what you sort of expected. You knew the offense was going to be there, but the defense was going to struggle.
Yeah, and they told us that was when he came over from Houston last year. I mean, They talked about it at our level, like, that's part of the process here. But man, that bat plays, huh?
Yeah, it does. It really does. And, you could even, mention that with Duran too, hitting 396 with 10 RBIs thus far. I think I saw, he had 8 or 9 doubles in his last like nine games as well, or something like that. And just his ability to look a lot more confident. And, he spoke about it in his post game with Jemai, talking about, the confidence and support that he's felt from his teammates. And, you really see that in the play as well on how seamless it is, rather than being forced or he has to overthink it like we've seen in 2021 and 2022.
I had a very candid conversation with Jarren like a few days before he got called up. So a few weeks ago, or just while he was still at AAA. And it was we kind of knew it was coming, right? After they finished the string of left-handers that they were facing, and it was going to be him that was going to go. And we talked about his eye, and he said something, and you hear guys like talk about controlling the strike zone and like seeing strikes or seeing balls and all of that all the time, right? Like that's one of the most important things in hitting. I'm not breaking any ground by saying that, but he put it this way. He said once he started picking pitches that he wanted to hit and laying off of everything else, all of those other pitches started to look worse to him. And it was kind of I never heard it put that way. And it's not anything too crazy, but I think it is insightful in terms of as you watch him take at bats, like you can see that process playing out every single day, every single pitch with that. It's not to say he's not going to chase sometimes. I mean, he's a human being, he's a hitter, but it's completely different than the guy that we saw last year. And so when you then start there and then factor in everything that he brings to the table, the occasional bit of pop, the speed obviously has changed the complexion of the lineup and made a huge, huge difference. I think you've seen the strides defensively. We'll see how that, what happens over months and months and months. He's talked about confidence in that regard as well. But it's a different dude than the guy that went to Fenway last year. It's a completely different person, one, and then player two. And I think we've seen that.
Well, yeah. So when I talked to him preseason, the one thing that I just dropped this episode a few days ago, and he really spoke about how just realizing, baseball is a game of failure, and like not being so hard on himself and more focusing on his approach of how he is in the clubhouse rather than like talking about the approach at the plate. And I thought that was just fascinating of like how you're starting to see the maturity of Jarren Duran in front of our eyes and how he really took, some of those tough stretches out off the field last year, really personally, and tried to change who he is as a person to help him ultimately be a better professional baseball player.
It's a great AAA story, truly. And it's, Chad Tracy, the manager of the Worcester Red Sox, his entire coaching staff, Flo, Getty, Mike Bonfil, everybody else, like they are phenomenal at what they do. And these are people that know the game of baseball. Paul Abbott too, can't forget him, that have lived the game of baseball. And so, you have them as a support system to lean on and grow with. And we've seen so many guys not only go up, then come back down, and then go back up and stay there. And Josh Winkowski is a prime example of it. And you've seen it time and time again. And so when this organization talks about having genuine investment and genuine belief in their player development, like they're not just talking about it, they're actually doing it over and over again. And it's fun to be just a fly on the wall to see it.
Right. No, yeah, I agree. And you even bring up Zach Kelly too.
Yeah.
It was tough to see how his season ended, and even Caleb Ward, what he was able to do in glimpses, so far this season. Obviously, just got optioned down for Chris Martin's activation. But I think even with him, he's shown you like small glimpses. But were you surprised about that move? Because you got to see it. You got to see a tiny bit of Brendan Bernardino right before he just got shot right up to the majors after being claimed, a week and a half ago or so. But were you surprised that it was Ort rather than Bernardino?
I think from Bernardino's, like, am I surprised that it was Ort? I mean, I know that just in general, like, this is what's going to happen over the next few weeks. Like, you have so many pitchers that are healthy. Like, there's going to be somebody, and it's already happened with now Bryan Bello won just for a microsecond there, and now Caleb Ort, someone that like is a major leaguer and has the stuff to be a major leaguer that's not going to be in the majors, which again, relative to last year from a Red Sox side of things is completely different and is wonderful to see. For Caleb, I think, A, good person, B, good pitcher, C, like the stuff is good. And it's just about, how this all fits in. And I think, it is cliche. And you hear it a lot at AAA, like, well, there'll be opportunities like later in the season, like, there will be, you never know when your number is going to get called and all of that. I think with him, it's true. It's just, that's the nature of bullpens. And people, he was the best closer at AAA for 2 years, genuinely. And I know, is 12 outings this year, I think 7 of them were scoreless, and obviously when there have been runs, they've stacked a little bit, but I think, they would not have kept him on the 40-man roster through the entirety of the offseason if they did not believe in him. And I think that belief, at least for me, and I can only speak for me, is absolutely still there, and it should be.
Right. No, yeah, especially being able to have those depth pieces when different situations come up. And I think, they did that a lot throughout this offseason, grabbing a guy like Ryan Sheriff. You can even bring up Joe Jenks, Jake Faria, those different bullpen or pitching depth arms if injuries do come up. Because, when you look at, just July and August of 2021 and 2022, just the amount of injuries, not only, 2021 COVID, 2022, just the amount of injuries and how many guys you had to essentially bring up. I don't know if you remember Jack Lopez being brought up in 2021, just all those different instances. And you never know when that type of stuff is going to happen. I think, just April thus far this season is a perfect example of just the amount of injuries that can happen out of nowhere.
To go back to the bullpen side of that, it's very interesting because if you look at what the Red Sox have done, they have been able to take guys, John Schreiber is, of course, the poster child for it. Zach Kelly is a good example of it as well. Like guys that are, not, they're not 21, they're not 22, a little bit later on and really been able to develop those arms into major league caliber arms. From Schreiber's perspective, obviously it was getting a little bit more on the breaking stuff and then working on velocity with the heavy ball stuff that he did. It's a story well told, but it's worth telling again. For Zach Kelly, understanding that he's got a serious weapon with that slider. And I would be remiss if I mentioned his name and did not say how just awful that injury was. And
You
like
brought up Caleb Ort being a nice guy too. He's been one of the nicest guys in the Red Sox since I've met.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, and they all are. And the point being here is like, they've been able to do that. And then they've also been able to develop the young arms. And when you talk about like, you never know, Josh Winkowski and Cutter Crawford last year, remember Cutter Crawford was on the opening day roster and Josh Winkowski, was in and out and especially down the stretch got a lot more time. Like those outings are formative. Those are formative outings at the big league level. You don't know what that's like until you do it. And now this year you get the fruits of all of that. And that's the point there, that they have been able to be patient and understand that it's part of the process and understand belief in the development system and then have gotten results from it to this point.
I hope that you are enjoying my conversation with Cooper, but I just want to take a second to talk to you about eBay Motors. So for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions may apply. Now let's get back into my conversation with Cooper. Right. And you bring up that development system. I think another thing that you said that, segues into, what I wanted to speak about next is being able to give confidence to guys, putting them on the 40-man and sort of indicating like you have a future on this Red Sox team, but we're just going to keep on developing you. And guys like Brian Mata and Brandon Walter, two guys who have struggled thus far in the first month with Worcester. Mata, seeing him struggle, being able to have control has been tough to watch at times. 8.4 walks per nine, 5.12 ERA. Then, Walter, his last start allowed 4 earned runs, 4.74 ERA. These guys showcased what they could do in spring training. Like, we know that they have this stuff. We know that they have the tools to be really effective starters and really effective pitchers in the major leagues at some point. But I'm curious, from what you've seen, what's going on at this point?
So from Walter's side of it is like, and again, I hesitate to be like, to go to the what's going on, because like we're 5 starts into a season where
right.
goodness willing, they're going to make 25, 30. So that's the first part of it. I think the good thing about Walter, just to start with him, is, he's learning to pitch at the AAA level. Like at AA, he's got big time stuff and like he can just throw it in the zone. It's kind of a high school effect. Like he's that good. And so, like it's just hard. That's a hard jump from AA to AAA. Like you're facing major league caliber hitters. Like it's not anything anybody doesn't know, but it is significant. And I think what for him, it is about, I love his mentality, right? Like he's a late round pick, around that I guess doesn't exist anymore, right? Like, out of Delaware, and like that doesn't matter to him. Like he gets asked about that, he's like, yeah, like it's true, but like I'm here now. And I think that mentality plays. From the Mata perspective, Friday night was his best start of the season. He was really good. And it's about strike throwing consistently. Obviously, we know the velocity's there. The breaking stuff has gotten better and better. I think he's close. That's just me walking out on the limb. I think he's very close. I think, if you look at if you're just looking at box scores, it doesn't tell the story. The walks tell a story, and I understand that. But what he put forth on Friday night against a very good lineup and it was Scranton, the Yankees affiliate, I think it's right there. And it's just so tantalizing because when he throws strikes, it's good luck. Like you have no shot at 98 and 99. And he is the one that when you put the spotlight on him, A, he delivers, and B, he will give this Red Sox bullpen ? Something that they sorely need, which is a very, very hard thrower, and just adding to the looks that they have out of that pen. If it ends up that way, maybe it's a starting role. I don't know. But I think it's close. I will stand on, I'll stand on the edge of that cliff for right now, whether I'm alone or not.
Yeah. what I'm about to say, you don't gotta respond to, but I think at least for me, from what I've seen in his control, a small glimpse of it, I think he's a bullpen arm future wise. I would love to see the control be a lot more consistent at points, but I mean, I think especially with what you bring up with that hard throwing ability that he does have coming out of the pen, he could be an even way more effective Josh Winkowski, and I think it's easy, especially when these guys do come up as starters. You even can look at Whitlock as well. When you put them in that bullpen role, it just gives them a little bit more power. It gives them a little bit more of an ability to have more control at times and not have to give that length if necessary.
It also, and right now, it is just worth saying, like, it makes more sense for him to be a starter right now.
Right.
Right. It's easier to go from starter to reliever than it is to go the opposite way. So that makes sense to me. But it'll be interesting. And I do think, based on Alex Core's rhetoric in spring training, like, we're going to get an answer to that. Like, I think he should and will help the big league club at some point.
I think so as well. And, last thing for you, looking at just the landscape of this WooSox roster right now, 30 days into the season, there's just, a few guys that come to mind who could, you think, make an impact that aren't in the top prospects or aren't on a lot of Red Sox fans' radars to what we could see make an appearance in Boston at some point this season.
Don't mind me. I'm just showing off the polar water. I'm a company man.
Do you get commission off of that? No, I'm kidding.
Venmo me. Yeah. So the answer to your question is a few guys. One is somebody who is a prospect, but perhaps has not gotten the full breadth of conversation that he deserves. And that is David Hamilton, because everybody just talks about how this guy steals bases. And by the way, he steals bases. Just the aside on that is, like, he gets to first base and, like, the park stops. The guys on the front step of the dugout stop talking, stop looking at something else, and they watch him because it's that good. So he does steal bases, the Red Sox record last year and all of that. But he's so much more than that. I saw an article about his arm, like about his like basically being negative about his defense. His defense is awesome, and he's developing and all that. They say he's got the best step in the organization, first step in the organization. And I don't see the whole organization all the time, but I could believe it. His arm is good. And obviously the speed plays at shortstop. Like, he looks like a shortstop that could play in the major leagues. And that is before we get to the bat. And he is the team's leader in slugging. And he's going to lead the league in stolen bases if he played the entire year at AAA, most likely. And so, like, again, you're kind of walking through what all of these guys can be. He is somebody that you get so excited about what he can be. And remember, this is somebody that Chaim Bloom brought in. This is somebody that, in the trade for Hunter Renfroe the other way, that comes back, and all of a sudden you're sitting here as like, this guy could impact the major league roster this year, and you'll see. Beyond that, as I, kind of like mentally walk through it here, I mean, there are a couple of utility guys in Nick Sogard and our favorite Ryan Fitzgerald, that have, really gotten off to very good starts for this team, and they just continue to put forth good numbers. I do go back to Bobby Dahlbeck, and it'll be very interesting to see kind of how this all shakes out and all that. But like, and the swing and miss is higher than it should be in April and all of that. But he just puts together good at bats a lot. Like, he has a lot of moments where he doesn't look like he belongs in AAA. And I don't know how that manifests itself this year on this roster for the Red Sox or anything like that. I just have a really hard time watching him every day, writing him off. That's just how I feel.
And then, Joe Jenks is another guy that I'm curious your thoughts on as well, because I've seen a lot of people rave about him.
Yeah, he's been awesome. Like, really cool story, to get to where he's been. All these relievers out of the pen early in the season, like, weren't really throwing a lot of strikes. And like, as the weather's gotten a little bit warmer, they were throwing a lot of strikes. And we've seen it over the last few days, how good it's been. He's one to keep an eye on because of the fact that he's been working back-to-back days. Like, Chad Tracy has wanted to get these guys in back-to-back days, which you don't see a lot. And he responded really well to that. And so, again, it seems like there's that opportunity. Like, there's one spot in the bullpen that could, that can be carousel and looking for somebody to take hold of it. he's a name for sure.
Makes sense. Yeah. I'm excited to see how, when we look at, July, August, how these guys' stats will also ultimately stack up to, last year in comparable. I think David Hamilton's one guy who the power aspect is one thing that I did not expect from him. I think he had like 12 home runs last year or something like that. But
Somewhere around
I mean,
there.
he's got like 4 right now, and we're only in April. And that's one thing that I just have even seen in BP and, in games as well. Obviously, it just bounces off the bat so quickly.
He was, like laser locked to start the year, and it was, those numbers were, to be leading the league in OPS after a few weeks like that probably wasn't going to persist just by human nature. But the at bats stay good. The speed always plays. As I already said it about the defense. You're right. There's pop there that like and again, I didn't see him play a whole lot last year, at Double-A, but like there's power there.
Right.
There's legitimate power. And, especially, I love the idea of him at Fenway where like he can, if he puts it to center to right, he's going to hit triples. And he goes the other way, which he has shown the ability to do and shown the ability to not only hit left-hand pitching, but hit for power against left-hand pitching, which is so hard to do, as we know, again, as a left-hander. There's a lot of good in that.
I agree. I think there's a lot of guys on this WooSox team that you can just have excitement about. And, looking at the record and looking at the box score, like we said about a few guys, it doesn't paint the whole picture. But appreciate your insight, Coop, today, and for giving us a little bit of glimpse of, what we saw or what James Paxton showcased and what hopefully could be his final rehab appearance. But as always, appreciate you coming on.
Iggy, appreciate you. You guys do a wonderful job every single day. And let's do it soon.
I hope that you did enjoy my conversation with Cooper Boardman. Got a little bit more insight on what to look forward to regarding James Paxton and also some other prospects like Brian Mata, Brandon Walter, and also some different players to look out for who might not have been on your radar that are playing right now for the Worcester Red Sox. But I always love bringing on different perspectives like Cooper and, some of the other guests that we had throughout this past week to be able to help you, the listeners, hear multiple different opinions, perspectives on these different players or storylines that are surrounding the Boston Red Sox. Not only just hearing from, Lauren and I and us telling you the facts or what different beat reporters are saying. I think being able to hear from a lot of different people who have the knowledge and expertise to speak about these things is really interesting and also adds to the different opinions that you could have on some of these different subjects. And so if you're looking to stay updated about everything that's happening regarding the Boston Red Sox, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Red Sox over on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us over on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox. Myself, it's at Jake Iggy. And also my co-host Lauren is 3 Laws, Lauren with 4 R's. But thank you so much, as always, for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now, for my everydayers, make sure to check in tomorrow because I'm going to be doing a review on the first month of the 2023 season of the Boston Red Sox, looking at what went well, what didn't go well, and what needs to be improved upon for this team to ultimately try and make a playoff run or a World Series run and to have an ultimately successful season at the end of the day. But make sure to check out that and tune in for tomorrow's episode and some great episodes throughout this next week. We post 5 days a week. And so, like I said, if you have not yet, make sure to subscribe over on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. I greatly appreciate you tuning in. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. And we'll end this episode how we always end it. Keep the faith, stay positive, and let's go Sox. Peace.